The abduction and murder of a Las Vegas grandmother still haunts the victim's family, in part because the accused killer has yet to face trial 28 years after the crime was committed.
Why do murder cases take years to prosecute? And is the COVID pandemic partially responsible for a legal logjam? Chief I-Team reporter George Knapp here now with the story. George?
Good evening. When COVID hit, criminal prosecutions nearly shut down here. So did civil cases. The COVID hangover is still causing ripples throughout the system, but it doesn't fully explain the grueling slog that characterizes the case of Ada Priolo's murder.
We have a innocent older woman just minding her own business, getting her groceries, and has evil come her way.
Metro's cold case detectives have file drawers packed with horrible homicides, but the murder of 81-year-old Ada Priolo always stood out. When we first profiled the cold case killing back in February 2019, the police didn't have a specific suspect in their crosshairs. 4 months later, though, they identified 42-year-old Christopher Mack as the alleged culprit. In August 1994, Priolo was abducted from the parking lot of a grocery store near her home. For 4 long days, her daughter Marilyn and family waited in anguish for news. Ada's car was found abandoned in a church parking lot. She'd been stuffed into the trunk with her groceries, then left to die in the triple-digit summer heat.
The chances of her being discovered in the very short time frame it would take for her to succumb to the heat is, very short.
You could die, an 81-year-old lady could die in an hour in the trunk of a car.
If that, yes.
There's not one reason why she was killed. There's not one reason.
Ada's 17-year-old granddaughter, Tammy Stillwell, became a spokesperson for the devastated family. 28 years later, she's still waiting for some measure of justice.
This is the 5th time the jury trial has been canceled. We get to the calendar call, or we get right up to, and it's canceled.
In the 3 years since the DA agreed to prosecute suspect Christopher Mack for the murder, the case has bounced between 3 different judges, waited for different prosecutors to be brought up to speed, was delayed while new DNA analysis was done, and for the production of new and expanded fingerprint graphics, and by requests for continuances filed by both sides.
Nothing but frustration. Frustration over and over and over again. It just keeps getting pushed off and pushed off and pushed off.
Las Vegas musician Rob Ruckus is Priolo's grandson. The delays have been hard on the entire family, he says, especially his mom. Ada's daughter Marilyn already suffered one stress-induced heart attack and may not survive another one, he says.
The frustration, the heartache that it's putting her through it's brutal. It's like she's getting sentenced every time one of these appeals happens.
The suspect, Christopher Mack, was 17 at the time of the murder, which meant his fingerprints, which were found on 5 locations on Ada's car, were not in the system until years later, after he'd committed other crimes in what is now a long criminal career. Mack was already serving time when homicide detectives named him for Priolo's murder. His lawyer argues he's already served enough time and should be released next year. One of the delays sought by the defense came when Mack didn't want to leave state prison for a court hearing because his belongings might be pilfered by other inmates. Another resulted from a now notorious inmate riot at the facility. Also, the pandemic caused the courthouse to essentially shut down, so all criminal cases were delayed, says District Attorney Steve Wolfson. But that COVID logjam is now resolved, he says, and Wolfson is confident the Priolo trial will move forward next month.
We're frustrated because it takes so long. But again, murder cases are going to take longer because there's so much at stake, and rightfully so. But at the end of the day, we get justice.
My goodness, you really feel for that family.
Yep.
What happens next in the case?
Well, there's a conference where they're going to try to work out a deal that would be acceptable to the family. I think the defendant is suggesting that he's already served enough time, just not for this crime.
Right.
So if that sentence, if they don't reach an agreement, then it's supposed to go to trial. However, the family says they've been told that the prosecutor will not be ready for trial in September, so there'd be another delay. We'll see.
Heartbreaking for that family. Thank you, George.